Well, this is going to be a little different than what typically comes from me. I'm sure I usually pretty good about sermon prep and having things ready and doing some stuff, and this week's not any different. I mean, it wasn't caught off guard. I've got 2 or 3 of them written up that we kind of studied on and had some stuff ready to go, and this whole, I don't know. I mean, for some of us, it's huge. Some of you, it doesn't matter much at all, but I got back from a golf tournament yesterday, and this morning we went out to the barn, and we just started doing some chores, and I got out there, and actually we laid around for a while this morning, won't lie. We didn't get to the barn until about 9:30, and kids were going to my mom's today, and so we weren't really in a hurry. You know, it was this was spring break today. And messed around. Molly went into the kitchen, looked up, there's sows out. They go to do that. I'm looking out the kitchen window, and I was actually in there studying again, trying to kind of put some stuff together, and I went to the kitchen sink, and I looked out, and a sow that was supposed to be in a crate is out of a crate in the barn, running around, and it's just like, oh, well, here he is. I mean, the devil shows up every time you're going to do something. I thought that was going to be the worst of it, honestly, and so then we get all that settled, tended to, and I go inside, and I'm starting to get text. I'm starting to get a lot of calls, a lot of just things blowing up. Well, at 12 o'clock today, they canceled the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo right in the middle of it. You know, we can go into depth about what is happening and why this deal is bigger than anything else or why this is happening. And my first thought is it's the calmest I've ever been hearing something like that. I went inside, and there was a lot of rumors floating around. I was hearing everything. And when the official press release came out, and it came across my phone like the minute that Rodeo Houston posted it, I just sat there in a chair in my room. And I was like, man. See, we don't even have one on feed ourselves to go to Houston. We just don't go to Houston very often. So it didn't affect me personally. It didn't affect Maddox personally. But some of the first people I thought about are seniors like Kirsten, all these other families around the world, the people that were sitting in the line with heifers waiting to go unload, sitting in limbo in the parking lot, and I'm just sitting there. But I've got this calmness. I've got this stuff coming over me. I'm just like, man, this stinks. And so instantly, those of y'all that know, we do the Stock Showing for Christ stuff. We go to stock shows and go, and I just scrolled down a couple times on Facebook, and man, some really smart people saying some really dumb things. I mean, just instantly. I mean, stuff like that brings out the best in everybody, right? So I just went out on the porch, which is the only place we have service anymore at our house because our phone booster went out, and I'm just sitting there, and next thing I know is this Bible was laying in there, and I grabbed it and opened it up, Jeremiah 29:11. Y'all know that one. And I just knew right then that I had to go talk, and this sounds weird. I just said it in my head for the first time, but I had to go talk to my people. See, I may not pastor this church. I may not do that, but there's a lot of ways that me and one other guy, we kind of pastor the stock show world, and it's kind of been pulled on us from sharing at those shows. No different than if I did pastor this church and I saw things happening, so I got online live there and I just shared. I just shared that we've got to keep our heads together. I just shared that we've got to make things happen, that we've got to make the right choices, that we can't show them just a bunch of ignorant rednecks talking about, well, I'll just sue Houston. Oh, okay, good luck to you, buddy. I mean, you know, millions and millions of dollars lost, you know, and things like that. And so it's just had me thinking all day long. And actually, when we left the house to go beat my mom, I reached over to grab my sermon notes. And the Lord told me, just lay them down. Don't take them. It's not the first time that's happened to me. I've got up a lot of times, not exactly sure where he was going to take us. And so I back up about, I don't know, it's been a month or so. And some really good friends of ours in San Angelo, we met him. He came to the church we were going to down there as a youth pastor. Only thing wrong with this guy is he's full-blown OU. He's Okie all the way. And other than that, he's cool. He's kind of wears skinny jeans and has hair different than Tyler's, but just kind of the little deer there. But anyway, I love Rick Emerson to death. But so one day, it's been, I don't know how long ago, he loses his position as a youth pastor there at that church. And I don't know what all's gone on there. We're not there anymore, but I know it split and divided and did a lot of things. And Church is still there. Church is still big. And so we'd been praying for him. Hadn't talked to him, didn't know what was happening. We go to Big Spring one day to the water park. We walk in there. Funny thing is, that week was when Tom and Kirk and Carter said, hey, if you're led to do this youth deal, it's yours. It's y'all's. Man, my head's spinning that week, and I'm like, okay, I just was going to camp to fill in, and here I am. And anyway, so we walk in this water park in Big Spring. We see this girl run by. Molly said, man, that looks like Rick and Stacy's daughter. Man, it sure does, just 4 years older, because kids grow up, you don't recognize them. Then all of a sudden, here comes Rick, here comes Stacy. They're still living in San Angelo, and we run into each other right there at that water park that day. At a time when I had been thinking, who am I going to talk to first? It was that guy that came to mind. We knew that they'd just kind of been through all this, not knowing what was going to happen. Had moved their family, 3 kids, done all this, had been in that position for a little bit. We talked to him that day. He said some things to me, and his wife said some things to Molly that really put a lot of things in perspective for me that day. Okay, so that's been, 2 years ago, Molly? We saw him over or something? Something like that. Anyway, they're like cool with it. I'd have been going out of my mind probably at that time. Well, let's fast forward to a month ago. So he goes to work. They start a church there in their home. They've got that thing growing. He goes and gets him a job to help pay some bills, starting at a desk clerk at a motel in San Angelo. Works his all the way up to general manager of this motel. His wife's Mary Kay business takes off at the right time. They're doing okay. And, well, I've been talking to him off and on, and I'm on Facebook the other night, and I see this deal that he's been hired as a pastor at a church in Houston. My first thought, even though, again, something not directly to me, was, oh, man, he just kind of got this thing going his way in the motel business. Stacy's got this stuff growing. These things happen. And I'm like, man, that stinks for them. So as I'm reading through this post, I get to the last paragraph of it, and visitors, be sure to go by the counter while you're here. All of you. 2 gifts tonight. It'll get there in a second. Anyway, so I'm reading down through there, and all I'm thinking in my head is all the things that have happened to us in our life the last few years. I mean, I've had no jobs in my life ever till I got this golf coach gig. Well, all of a sudden, I'm reading down here, and I get to this point, right before this paragraph pops up, all I'm thinking is about, man, they've got to uproot and move. He's got this thing going his way. He's got this, and it says, our prayers through this process and decision have been reminding ourselves and our children that our security is found in Christ alone, not our location, job description, or even stability we've created for ourselves, but that we trust God even in the waiting, and we're obedient to take steps of faith. This is how we're called to live. That hit me. I don't know that I've ever read anything that hit me that hard at that moment. Because when those words right there, when it says the security that we've created ourselves. How many of you in this room right now today would like to think that you're pretty secure in the position you are? Some of you are in a really good, secure position. Some of you are not. I raised show pigs and a golf coach without a degree. I mean, they could get rid of me tomorrow. And it's just, I think about things. Never been secure in my life, really, honestly, in a position other than Molly's jobs. From the time I was 18 years old, I have paid my bills based off of something that is performance-driven. So I don't know what security is. If you're not winning goat shows, you're not winning pig shows, you have a hard time selling them sometimes. I was very poor at developing and keeping those relationships that kind of keeps you in business through the low spots. Molly's always had a job. Molly's always had that. But then we look around at every place she's ever been until now, and things can happen. She had a really good job at a bank in Angelo right before we left. When we made the decision to move to Ira, the bank she was working at, awesome place. I mean, awesome place. Her faith grew so much working at this place. They did Bible studies at work. I'm talking about a very Christian man leading them. I'm talking about met somebody in her life that'll always be her person as far as a soul sister, spiritual sister, whatever you want to call her. But that bank and that CEO has a very, very, very strict policy that if you're leaving, you're gone tomorrow. There's no 2-week notice. There's no nothing else. If you're changing jobs, you're leaving. So it was going to be 4 or 5 months before we actually moved. And I'm talking about broke as a joke. We hadn't fed pigs yet. We had to build barns where we were going. But I knew the Lord was calling us for some reason to move to that place we're on now. Knowing the policy of that bank, we had to make a decision between us, not walking a perfect line, but walking a pretty good line, pretty good spot in our, in church and doing those things. But we had to make a decision. Are we going to tell them? Or are we going to see how far we can ride this and keep getting paid? So, man, there was a time in my life I'd have said, ain't no way you're telling them. No way. We know the policy at the bank. I said, but that ain't who we are. We're not doing it. God's got us. He ain't going to move us. Just drop us on our head. Molly walks in. The CEO's gone. She talks to her immediate boss. Her boss probably overstepped her bounds, luckily. Thanks, Vanessa, if you happen to ever watch this. And said, hey, thanks for letting us know. It's not like you're going to a different bank. It's not like you're going against competition with us. You don't even know what you're going to do when you get there. I'm going to tell you, you got your job. 3 days later, CEO gets back. They tell CEO what the deal is, and he says, it's not the policy. And I probably can't tell any details past that other than I'm going to tell you what, we were okay until the time we moved. Because we chose to trust God. To my knowledge, it's the only one. She didn't have a job, but we got to check. I'll just say that for a while, okay? Security. Do any of us really ever have it? On Sunday, we hear all the time from the pulpit, we hear all the time that life isn't certain. Life isn't guaranteed. Come to the altar now. Come accept Jesus now. Come do this now. Those things we know as Christians, we know as people that you've got to get saved. Your salvation is all you have. But how many of us make decisions all the time based on this thing called security? You've heard stories over and over and over of people losing their jobs a couple years before they retire, things like that. It's not just in that. It's security in your relationships that are around you. We're right here in the church. We're all awesome, godly people, right? Nothing ever happens within these walls, right? Nobody ever gets mad at each other. Nobody ever leaves. Nobody ever has to leave. Nobody ever has anything. When I sit in a pew, luckily it's not haunted, but right there where we sit every week, there's nothing certain. You can tell your best friend tomorrow the wrong word, and you may not have a friend. You can go back to the old stuff. Well, they wasn't really a friend anyway. Well, what is a friend? What are our relationships? What is our security? Back 6 months ago, people were buying pigs and steers. A year ago, people were buying steers to go show at the Houston Rodeo because the Houston Stock Show's gone on for I don't know how many years. The security in that is gone. It doesn't matter what we do day to day. I'm going to tell you right now that, man, our last, I don't even know how many months, we've been hit after hit after hit after hit. When you pay your bills, most of them raising show pigs, you kind of need baby pigs to sell as show pigs, right? When you don't have baby pigs to sell as show pigs, things get pretty tight pretty quick. I didn't know what we were going to do at all. Had no clue. I shared this on Tom's Walk because this all happened from the time of our first meeting till we got there. For some reason, as a kid, I played a lot of golf. Played a lot of golf as an adult. Played a lot of golf as a husband and a dad for a little while. We won't bring that up. But those relationships developed into the first real job I ever had. based on a kid that worked in the bag room at San Angelo Country Club that was coming to church at Bethel before we were coming to church at Bethel. Fast forward, Kelly asked at a softball game one day that I wasn't even going to play softball this year, and I just did. Think Bronc would be interested in that assistant coach job. I tell you a lot of this, and I go just totally off script because it's all still back to Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, not to harm you in any way. Today, there's people crushed all over. And to some of y'all that don't get it in the stock show deal, I get that you don't get it, and I understand that you don't get it. But, because you got to be nuts to do it. I mean, or you got to be, but it helps. But today, there's kids crushed all over. But we know the hurt that's happening right here within our own family. It really doesn't equate to that at all. There's already a group of people jumping up trying to put together a show to go be able to show these Houston pigs somewhere. There's things happening. I had that feeling this morning before I even knew that. It's going to be all right. It's always going to be all right. As long as we're trusting and we know that the plans He has for us are not to harm us, but to prosper us. Sometimes we need a win. You've heard Carter's testimony when he talks about at Cow Palace, when he sat down on his rope can and said, Lord, I've been doing what you want me to do. I didn't make the NFR. I'm supposed to go to the NFR and be the Christian cowboy. Hey, I've been there. I've thought to myself, Lord, if you'll let us win this pig show, just imagine how many more people we can reach. Well, I can tell you, when you start preaching at some pig shows and you don't win one and you're not right about it, they're watching. Throwing brushes, doing whatever. I mean, it all spins around. So what is prosper? What is to prosper you? We've been doing this golf deal now since September. We got a really good group of kids. I was blessed the other day to sit right there on Sunday on that road with them. I didn't tell all of them where we were going. And this is not on the way to Lubbock from Snyder, just for the record. But they figured it out quick. Anyway, just the fact, so we go up there. And I'm not going to tell you we won our first golf tournament because we sat in these church pews on Sunday, because that ain't how it works. But I am going to tell you that there's a kid that had never heard, and I'm telling you had never heard the word of Jesus Christ. Now, I'd like to tell you he sat back there and got saved and everything's going to be all right, but that didn't happen. He left, and all he thought was, well, that was all right. It wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible. I survived. I got through it. But I can't think of a better message for somebody that had never stepped foot in a church, didn't ask to go, wasn't forced to go, but came in, than those words that day, because we are going to go through something. Every one of us are going to go through something. When he does, you know what I do know for sure he's heard once in his life? He heard about a man that talked about losing his dad and the people that rallied around him. We know the ultimate is knowing about Jesus having us, but I'm going to tell you what I think is the ultimate about what he heard that day. When he gets in that bind, when he gets in that wreck, when he gets in whatever it is, and it may not, hopefully it's not what brings him there. Maybe he just decides he's lonely one day and I got to have more. What he heard was a church rallying around their pastor. What he heard is a church rallying around somebody, friends coming together, people that aren't even friends. He'll know that there's something. I don't know when it'll be. We don't have to be totally wrecked to come to Christ. I hope for him it's not. Because I'm telling you, he comes from a great family. I mean, money will never be an issue in that. I mean, say security, I guess, could change, but I don't know. And I don't know all the way why the Lord wanted me to share all this tonight here. Other than I popped up with that message from that Facebook post from a guy that I ran across several times. One of the biggest things that ever drew me to Bethel as a whole was when the Connect, Cultivate, and Carry On was being preached every Sunday at every campus. I hadn't even stepped foot in the campus by then when I heard that. It is so, so important. We know what it's done for that family this last month. One of the hardest things that I've done was to have been sitting in I'd say sleazy motel, but it was clean. It's in Mason, Texas. There's not many options, just for the record. But I'm laying there, and Tessa texts me. She said, "Are you awake?" Well, my heart sank instantly when I got that text anyway. But then I thought, well, they're just coming off the walk. Maybe she's got something funny to tell you, because those of you that know me and Tessa are kind of sick and twisted together sometimes. And so I said, yeah, I'm the only one laying around waiting for the cockroach to crawl out from under the TV or something. And she called and answered the phone. She said, "Have you heard?" And I thought of y'all sitting in this room, thought of a lot of things until she got it all out. But the next thing that she told me was, don't give it another thought. We know y'all moving to San Antonio tomorrow. We're still praying for y'all. Y'all be praying for us. Go do what you're supposed to be doing. Don't drop everything and come. In other words, you show up here and I'm kicking your butt. Okay? Well, that phone call, me laying there for a little bit thinking, I didn't sleep at night much at all. I thought about the Wednesdays that I won't see Johnny Kirk here. That's who I sat with at the basketball games. Me and him was the only one to stay quiet. But I thought about those things, and I thought about not being able to be there for him. I've not had that feeling a lot in my life, ever. It's about having the people to rally around you, whether you're there, whether you're not. Who knows who in this room is not going to be here next week? And I'm not talking about in a death kind of way. I'm talking about in a job. I'm talking about in something has to happen, something changes. That right there, when it says the security the stability we've created for ourselves, that's not the stability that we can be dependent on. That is not the stability that we got to create it. We've got to protect our family. I'm not saying sit around. If you're looking for a job, if you're not sure what's about to happen, if you're broke with a broke down pickup again, you're sitting there and you're wondering how you're going to get to another show, you're going to get whatever it is. I'm not saying sit still and do nothing. But know that your only stability at the end of the day, every single time, day in, day out, will always be your stability in Christ. How do you hear those things? Preached on it. I've told you, study. You've got to listen. You've got to pray. But you know what? Most importantly, you've got to be around the right people. There's months, just about, that I don't get to come to church here. It's hard to be off somewhere, be honest, knowing that I'm sharing and that's where He's called me to be. To be in Louisiana on a Sunday after 3 or 4 weeks in a row. I love being downstairs with the youth on Wednesdays. We're usually here on Wednesdays, but we go by. We've been 5, 6 weeks not step foot in here, but I can guarantee you more people reach out. They listen to our stuff online. They do that stuff on Facebook, whatever, but knowing that when I leave, when we go do that, man, we're an extension of Bethel there. We're an extension of the kingdom. We're an extension of whatever else is going on and happening. So, we really don't have a big closing whoop-ah kind of message to this at all. I just encourage you to just make sure your stability's in the right place. We got to make a living. We got to feed our kids. We got to put clothes on their back. We got to do some stuff. We can't sit around and just be totally tight and not go do nothing because it's expensive or whatever. And everybody's at a different level. Tyler talked more about what people give for pigs but they also drive a different pickup, live in a different house. I told a cotton farmer one time that was mad about what a guy gave for a pig. I said, that guy drives a bigger cotton stripper than you two, and you ain't cared yet. So why do you care what he gave for a pig? Our stability has to be in doing stuff, and I'm just telling you right now, that win with those boys the other day. Man, there was a pretty good drive home. They were asleep. I was driving. And I also knew for the first time in my life that I had a win or a part of something that I knew that it's just a win. It's just a win. If I put everything in that win, we're going to leave Saturday and go to another tournament. And if I put everything in that win and I get to that next tournament, we don't win, and I've got it all in that win, and we don't, I'm crushed. Man, it's just a golf tournament. It was huge for them boys. Huge for me. We were a little old JUCO at a D2 and NAII tournament. I mean, wasn't easy. The next stock show we have the blessing to win, because I know it's coming. It's just a win. It's just part of the steps. It's just part of what you've got to do, creating stability. But if that stability's in the Lord, it won't matter if you win or not. We've all got to have a win, though. You pick out what your win is. My win this morning was I didn't kill that gilt that kept crawling out of that crate. I promise you, because I wanted to. At the end of the day, I just caught myself and said, hey, we're going to get out of this. Pick your win. Look for your win. Because that's when your stability is going to come, when you can know that He's got you. We can all sit there a long time. I watched a guy on that walk we worked at Riley's. This is all I've got to say on this. This guy just popped in my head right now. 83-year-old man. Been sitting in church every Wednesday.